Boston College's class of 2026 is already looking really good. I'll explain why it looks so good today.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. Thank you all for joining us on today's show. Today, we have a packed episode. We're going to talk a little bit of basketball. Rick Pitino has an idea of where college basketball could go. Kind of aligns with things I've been thinking. I'm going to explain what he thinks and why I think it might not be the worst idea in the world. I'm going to also talk about Tuesday night's game against Virginia Tech, a win for the Eagles and one that they desperately needed. And we're going to kick things off with some football recruiting discussions because things have quieted down a little bit for football recruiting, but that does not mean that news is not happening. So on Monday, on Tuesday, a bunch of new rankings went out or ratings went out for players in the class of 2026. Sometimes you guys have seen a player will commit to BC and I'll tweet about it or write about it and say they don't have a rating yet. Sometimes it takes a little while. The scouts at 247 have to watch the film. They need to be able to see, what they need to see to give them a proper rating. Well, Gerald Green Jr., who committed to BC in the last month, he did not have a rating. He's out of More Catholic in New York. He got his initial rating of an 87, which puts him, pretty right in the middle of the pack of his class. And the number 49th ranked cornerback and the number one recruit in the state of New York. Take that, Fran Brown, right? So that gives everybody except for DJ Biggins, a wide receiver from Connecticut, a rating. And the reason I bring this up is right now, as constituted, BC has the 17th recruiting class in the class of 2026. Now, do not go in my comment sections right now and go, AJ, it's only February. All the blue bloods. I know that they have not had the big guys go yet. But there's positive news to look at where the way this class is going. And the first thing I look at is the average rating of a recruit. Right now, the average rating of a recruit is about 87.4, which is up from last year of 85.9. Now, if you're not into the recruiting news and how that works, a 90 is a four-star recruit. An 80, it's low 3-star and everything in between. An 85 is average, basically. And then, those 85 to 90, the scale in there is in between. You want to have as close to 90 as possible. Right now, they have an 87.5, I said. That's good. That's a big increase in the score and ratings of your recruits. So by 247 standards, BC's recruits are starting to tier up a little bit. They're starting to go to that next level. Now, I know you may be looking for those 4 stars. There's not a 4-star yet, but you have recruits that are close to a 4-star. Mason Leak, a recruit from Bacon Academy in Connecticut, an edge rusher. He's an 89 before his senior season has even started. You read Hudson Standish, the 247 scout, what he had to say about Leak, it sounds like he could be a 4-star by next October. So you might already have a 4-star on your roster. And you look at some of the other guys that you have, and it's not far to see that other guys could bump up. Guys like Dominic Funke, a player who had offers from Pitt, Rutgers, Wisconsin. He was a dominant force on Xaverian. And he's only an 86 right now. I could see him bumping up. I could see someone like Mac Fitzgerald, who was just down in New Orleans, representing the Patriots. I could see him bumping up. And these are just the guys on your roster. I'm burying the lead. AJ, slow down here for a second. Corinne Berry, who had he started, I think when I'd have to look it up really quick. But I believe when he committed to BC, he was like an 84. And since then, he's moved all the way up to an 87. And this is 86. So he's went up from an 86 to an 87. But I could see, he's getting more and more offers, which means, higher ratings. He's been killing it at camps, and I know a lot of you folks are worried about Corinne Berry, the quarterback from California, leaving. This is a guy I think with a good senior season could be a 4-star as well. So you have multiple 4-stars, and this is before you even really get into the meat of your recruiting class. These are just your local kids and your quarterback. That's basically it. Every kid goes into one of those camps. You get Corinne Berry, your quarterback. Everyone else is Northeast. Whether it's, Gerald Green from New York or everyone else that's in that group is from New England. They've done all that. That's all the local stuff, the good, easy stuff that they can do. Well, I don't want to say easy because some of these guys are really good, but the local stuff that they can really slam dunk. Now comes the big stuff. Now comes the big, meaty part of your recruiting schedule. We're still in a dead period until the beginning of March, but March 15th is the start of spring camp. That's where unofficial visits can continue. And I've talked to a few kids already that are already telling me they're going to be on campus. And you're already seeing, if you are on Twitter and you follow, whether it's, Tom Loy of 247 or, any of the local guys like Brian Doan or Alan True, like all the local guys that do all their regional scouting, you've seen other schools packing their official visit season already. Like I looked at the Florida Gators. They are they've got like 40 guys already. And I'll tell you right now, the guys that I know that are not committed to BC, I know of one. So they're taking a slow roll with this, and that's fine. If Bill O'Brien, he has his system, I'm interested to see what happens there. But other than a running back from Ohio, which I'll have up on Eagle Insider soon, there isn't anyone that I know of that has officially committed to take an official visit. You may have seen a few names pop up on Twitter if you just follow BC Boston College on Twitter. But these names I've talked to the staff, they're not confirmed yet. So don't go just listening to what's on Twitter. So this is going to be a crazy class. I think this class is going to take a gigantic step forward. I already just showed 1.5 is a big difference. Like if you're just like kind of confused of what the point system and how that really impacts, most of Halfley's classes were like an 85-ish. The fact that BC is an 87.5, that shows a gigantic growth. Because I could compare Halfley classes, and then most of them were like a 0.4 difference or a 0.3 difference. This is a 1.5 difference, basically. So BC has really done a nice job so far. And there's 4 stars coming. There's 4 stars that they're looking at. As I've mentioned, Kai Pritchard, Marky Walbridge is another name to look for. There's some names that are going to be really high recruits that they're going to look at. So I'm really excited about the class of 26 is what I'm saying. If you want more updates on the class of 2026, come over to Eagle Insider. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. I have stuff all the time up about where, the latest names to watch for, visits, official versus unofficial. I can give you all the details up on our message board. If you haven't been part of our message board too, check that out. Now, in a moment, I'm going to switch over to basketball. Crazy night in Chestnut Hill. Let's get into how they won their 3rd game in ACC play this season. We'll get into that in just a moment. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was dealing with piles of paperwork and frustrating forms, and then waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back. Now Taxes is easily uploading your forms to a TurboTax expert who matches up to your unique tax situation. An expert who's backed by the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points for 100% accuracy. While they work on your taxes, you get real-time updates on their progress, and you get the most money back guaranteed, all while you go about your day. No stressing, no worrying, no waiting. Now this is Taxes, Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in 100 iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at turbotax.com/guarantees. Welcome back, Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Thank you all who have locked on and checked out every episode of ours. We are a daily Boston College podcast, the only daily Boston College podcast, and I'm crazy enough to do it. If you guys have not listened to us before, Like I'm an insider. I know a lot of what's going on. If you want the details, you need to make sure you hit subscribe on YouTube wherever you get podcasts. And a second listen. That's when you're done with all my shows. Check out Locked On ACC with Alex Dono and Kenton Gibbs. That's on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. It'll get you caught up on the Atlantic Coast Conference. You know you want to make sure you get in on that. Now, let's get into basketball. I saw the schedule coming up, and on Tuesday night, it was a 9 p.m. start as Boston College hosted Virginia Tech for their second, and I think 2 weeks, night game that started at 9. Now, I have a basketball someone covering it, so I don't stay up and watch these. I'm going to tell you the truth, folks. I get the joy of in the morning turning on my YouTube TV, finding it, and then just zipping through it because I'm not staying up till midnight to watch BC basketball. Just going to say that right now. I will watch it in the morning, but I'm not going to give up sleep to watch them. And I'm going to guarantee, even if you guys are going to judge me on that, you would do the exact same thing. So Tuesday night, they play Virginia Tech. And the first thing I looked at was that Virginia Tech is not very good. And I know BC's terrible, but they also have a coach, Mike Young, who is on the coaching hot seat because, they're just bad. And I looked at this game and I said, Conti Morgafek alert, because it's a 9:00 game. The students are not going to show up. The fans are not going to show up. And it's going to be like playing in a crypt. And I'm going to tell you right now, watching it on TV and seeing what happened, I don't think I was all that wrong. Like, look at the pictures on BC men's basketball's Twitter account. What you will see is people kind of filling in the first 4 rows. And it's almost like a wrestling show where they like black out some of the seats so you can't see it, that they're empty. They kind of did that with Conti Forum because like after that, it was all dark because they just kind of shut it down. It was dead. And 9 p.m. games when you're having Boston College play, unless you're playing Duke or UNC, is going to be dead. But credit to Boston College because they held Virginia Tech to 11 points in the first half. 11 points. They were shooting 20%. The second half didn't get much better for the Hokies as they managed total. I guess it got better. They doubled their score in the second half. They lose 54 to 36. I saw someone tweet it and shout out, I think it was Nick P, who tweeted out that Virginia Tech scored more points in football against BC than their basketball team did against BC. And he's not wrong. They scored 42 points against BC football and 36 against the basketball team. I don't want to discredit anything that happened on the court because, you can play an ice cold team, but this was like the 5th time in Virginia Tech history that they were held to 36 points or below. And if I remember the stat that I saw by Tim Thomas, not the hockey player, but a journalist, this was the first time since like the 50s since this has happened. This was, first of all, a putrid game to watch. You can credit BC for playing great defense, but BC's offense was, they shot 40% from the field. Their 3-point shooting was absolutely abysmal. Neither team could get to the line, but Virginia Tech was as cold as Mr. Freeze. They just could not do anything. And for BC, they grab a win. So credit to Earl Grant. I'm going to credit him. Credit to the Eagles, who are now 1-0 since Jack Butler was named the new president of Boston College. I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but a win's a win. So that win is important for Boston College because it gets them closer to qualifying for the ACC tournament. Because remember, not every ACC team makes the tournament. So if you're looking for some sort of miracle run or any way to end the season positively, a win is a win. They are going to have to get past NC State, who now has the same conference record they do, but they obviously own the tiebreaker, so that is going to be big. Now, BC plays their next ACC game against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is okay, like every other ACC team, they're okay. It's not like a team that could, go either way. But for BC, the losses that you need to watch for Syracuse, who might be in one of those many ACC programs that could be looking for a new coach, because Autry over in Syracuse is not playing very well. He doesn't have that team going very well either. So the crazy part about this win is that Boston College is allowing 36 points, is the lowest amount of points allowed against an ACC team in school history. So Earl Grant's team has a school record now. Think of that. They hey, credit to them. It was one of the ugliest looking games I've ever seen, but holding the team to 11 points at halftime and 36 overall is a credit to the school and credit to Earl Grant. Now, can they build from this? Because you're not going to run into poorly playing Virginia Tech teams every game. Georgia Tech is much better coached. They're a better team. Will BC be able to slow them down? I'm not sure they're going to be able to. I think this is going to be a tough one for Boston College. I believe it's on the road. But these 9:00 games, I'm going to tell you again, are just brutal for fans. Like just the whole experience of it. Like I get that you have stock of games that you have to be able to like get on your different networks. But who in their right mind wants to watch Boston College and Virginia Tech at 9 p.m. Eastern time? They're both two Eastern schools. They're both two teams that have never been really all that great, other than that one year that Virginia Tech was really good. Why? What's other than television, which I guess is the answer, AJ, right? That's what's gone. That's what the reasoning is. But for the fans' perspective, those 9 p.m. games stink. And we got more of them coming up. We actually have later games coming up because you have a West Coast split swing coming up, and I think it's in a week, against Cal and Stanford. So buckle up because those are going to be really late as well. Now, in our final segment, Rick Pitino, not a big person that Boston College people are fans of. He had an idea for college basketball and two conferences, and I want to talk about what those look like. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. Welcome back. This is Locked On Boston College. I want to shout out all my Eagles nesters. This is a subtext program, so if you got your phone, you grab your phone right here. Ready? You grab your phone. You sign up. I will send you text messages when things pop up, things that are interesting. You get your first month free if you use the promo code Bill O'Brien Monster. You can ask me questions. We're going to do more as the summer goes along. We're going to do more VIP chats. So, and also, I want to shout you all out. If you've not checked this out on YouTube or, we are now going to be on Roku, which is pretty cool. You can get me everywhere, which is great. Right now, I'm in New Hampshire. You can see my lovely background here. Where, I'm off for the week, so I'm doing a little traveling, a little skiing. And but I want to shout you all out for who have checked this out and have made this your daily listen. Like, we do this 25 minutes a day. And there's no other place you're going to find Boston College news that talks about BC news for 25 minutes. I mean, I'm just going to shout it out. We're the only one that does this. You can turn on Bill O'Brien's podcast. He's going to talk about BC for 5 minutes. He's going to talk about, the Bruins and Celtics and his diet that he's on. I'm talking about BC for 25 minutes here. So make sure you like and subscribe to us wherever you get podcasts. And I love Bill O'Brien's podcast. I'm not ripping on. I'm just saying we do something a little different. Okay. Now, I have said all along, if you go back to some of our old podcasts, that the way college sports is going to work, I think is going to change in the next 10 years. We've seen all around conference realignment with the Big East, the Big Ten, SEC becoming these mega conferences. But I really feel that these conferences are going to become football exclusive in the next 10 years. Like, you're going to just see look at what the ACC is right now. Baseball is not going to want, and softball is not going to want to travel to Cal twice a year and then have to be out in the West Coast for a whole week. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense financially, and that's what all this is based on, right? all these Olympic sports that you have on campus now have to travel across the country for against schools that were never on their schedule to begin with, 5 years ago. So what I think is going to eventually happen is you'll have your football conferences, and I think BC will be fine in the ACC. But I think the Olympic sports are going to probably change and have their own regional conferences. So something like the Big East. I think that is going to be something to watch for. And Rick Pitino, head coach of St. John's, brought up something last week that I thought was really interesting, which is he would love to see the Big East and ACC merge in basketball to form a mega conference to try to run that sport. And honestly, I'm not a big Rick Pitino fan. I think he's kind of not the most, up to, on the level coach I've ever met. But I think he's got a point here. I love this idea. I've been saying all along, I'd love to see BC basketball play Big East basketball. I long for the days of Georgetown and Providence and UConn and all these other Big East schools that BC used to play. So if they were to merge, and you still got your games against Notre Dame, you got your games against Syracuse and Pitt, that would really drive the interest and make a really fun product. And just for BC fans, I think that would be fun. But think about for the Tobacco Road, like for Duke and UNC, to have to have UConn on your schedule every year, or to play, Marquette or some of these other Big East teams that you're going to play, St. John's. It's a win-win for the sport. And you're talking money, that's money right there. The way that UConn has been played, the way Dan Hurley has that program going, having them play Duke every year, that is like a dump truck full of money to the two commissioners of both of those leagues. So I think Rick Pitino has a point here. And it's important to think about this because the SEC, who has been the gods of football forever, are starting to get their grubby hands on basketball too, as Auburn's the number one team in the country. They're you look at the mock brackets, and they have the most. So for conferences like the ACC and the Big East to get together and try to put a kibosh to this would be a great idea. And for Boston College, you look at the goods and the pot, the pros and the cons. For some of you younger folks, you may not have any, longing to see Big East teams, and I get that. If you were not alive, 20 years ago, with BC playing some of these teams, it doesn't matter to you. But they were fun regional rivalries that really boosted the attendance at Conti Forum. And I say that right now. So I think that would be great. I would, a game against Georgetown to me, or a game against Providence to me, is much more fun than seeing BC play Florida State or Miami. Just the way it is. Those two schools are bigger marquees, but BC has a history against those other schools, and I would much rather see that. The negatives, I guess what I would say is it would be a lot harder to get into the tournament, but that's a whole other story because it sounds like the tournament's going to get bigger too. So I look at that and I say, maybe that's going to be a challenge, but you build this conference into a mega conference, recruiting is going to be easier. You have Father Jack Butler now in. Maybe you can start to really turn this program around with the New Balance deal and all this good stuff by putting more money into it. Again, someone messaged me, and I thank you. I think it was Laura K who messaged me. Money is going to be the key. You got to put money into this. And that's what I said on yesterday's episode. Father Jack Butler is a great guy. I'm really excited for him to be president, but for all these, different things that we're talking about, if he doesn't increase the money and how much they put into these programs, none of this matters. You're going to still be the bottom of the ACC, the bottom of the Big East, whatever it is. You got to be able to put money into this. So I love this idea. I think it's good, but it's going to have to push BC to continue to push their conference, the money that they're putting into this to another level. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow with more. We'll talk about football. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about the running backs. I want to get into that a little bit if there's no news that we need to break down. Thank you all for listening. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. I'm on Blue Sky and Threads and Instagram. Check me out on all those. And thank you all for listening. and checking out Locked On Boston College, your team every day.